Okay, I think we're live. We're
Great.
live. I am Sylvie Rinaldi,
I'm Karina Tipton.
and this is Town Hall Tailgate, but we are tailgating from home with our
Yes.
mugs.
Yes, we're having this time we have beverages. It might be hot tea.
It's hot chocolate. We decided to stay in our cozy homes and watch the planning board meeting remotely today, which was great that we got to do that. So now we are just going to record our town hall tailgate from the comfort of our own homes. It's a little
Ooh,
warmer in here than it is
yes,
in the
yeah.
parking lot of town hall.
I'm still waiting for us to get a little bit closer to summer solstice when nighttime starts after maybe we are recording. This gives us an extra week to really figure out our lighting situation in the parking lot.
I know the lighting is a struggle, but the sound was much better in the last one. The microphones were helpful.
Yeah, thanks. I'm really excited that my husband has so many AV hobbies.
Um, So we are covering the planning board meeting. Today is May 10th. And I mean, honestly, I looked at the agenda before and I was like, oh, okay, there's nothing like super controversial. I'm just, it'll be a short meeting. It was not a short meeting and it was really interesting. So, I mean, I have a bunch of notes. It just went on in a direction I just didn't foresee. What about you?
Yeah, I think this was a really great meeting. I think a lot of times people go to the town hall, the planning board meetings because they're concerned about a specific project and they've got something to say. And it's like a very like emotional meeting. And there definitely was emotional parts to this meeting. But what I really loved about this meeting is it really showed that the planning board doing their stuff,
Oh,
like
yeah.
getting into the details and making really specific technical questions. And it showed the process after a project is approved. And we don't always get a chance to see that. And it's really it's great to see. I mean, we love our planning board. I think it's the hardest working board around. It's definitely the toughest job, and they're volunteers and they show up for the town and they do so much legwork. And this kind of a meeting that they had tonight just really showcased the amount of detail and hard work that they have to do.
Yeah, and if I, listened carefully enough, it sounds like a lot of the questions and work that they had done was, um, in a work session, and then they were following up after that. So it was like they have these work sessions which they don't live stream, but are open to the public, and they had kind of mentioned that they had covered some of the topics today in their work session. So I 100% agree with you, like, the amount of digging and research and review that the planning board does and questions, it's just really amazing.
Hmm. Yeah.
All right. So let's just go in order of the agenda. There's just a first one we'll start with, which is autumn sky, which is not a autumn or a sky. It is a spec warehouse.
Yes, a 20,000 square foot warehouse.
This is on the corner of Paul Lane and 208. So it's on 208 headed towards Walden. It is past Bailey Road on the left. Paul Lane, when I looked at it and drove past, it's really just like a driveway. So I don't know if I caught this. Um, the entrance is not going to be on Paul Lane. The entrance is going to be on 208, right?
That's my understanding. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so really what they talked about in today's meeting, it was an extension of the public hearing, meaning that this hasn't been approved yet. They're going over the site plans, is basically just getting through what this warehouse is going to look like, but not just what it looks like, how they're going to remove snow, how is it going to be landscaped? Are there going to
Mhm.
be significant trees? They went through all that kind of stuff today. So, I mean, other than that, any,
Yeah, the one thing that I thought, like, just like I mentioned before, like the amount of detail that they get into, like as an illustration, one thing that they talked about was how across Route 208 there's a residence and there's a flat wall facing that residence. So they talked about how to make that wall more attractive for the neighbors. And I think that's at the root of the planning board's job. It's really to make sure that projects conform with the other things that are in the town surrounding it. I think one thing that is in there, it's in the, I can't exactly remember where it comes from, but the term harmonious use comes up a lot when you're talking about projects that are being approved by the planning board. And I,
Mhm.
I think this was a good illustration of that kind of activity.
Yeah. They even mentioned, like, having I don't know if it was the owner who was presenting, but to have him go and, like, tie ribbons around the trees he thought were the big trees or what, they call the significant trees, and then with someone on the planning board would drive by and just, like, confirm, um, which I think is great and just shows that they're willing to get out there.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, all right. So let's talk about the next one because this was a big ticket item. So this we've talked about in other meetings. It's the UNFI Phase 2 project. So this is an expansion of UNFI to
Mhm.
have additional storage space on Neelytown Road. It does not add any loading docks. And they are reviewing the site plans. And in the past meetings, there was a lot of discussion about compliance to their codes that they've set up for this particular site. So having the trucks line out on Neelytown Road was an issue at night, putting refrigerated trucks in the back.
Mhm.
And we talked a lot about code enforcement, right? So this is
Yeah.
just an extension, it's a continuation of that conversation. Wow. This one was a big one.
Yeah, and if anyone's following along at home, I think we talked about this on April the 12th and then also April the 26th. So this has
Yes.
been a pretty big topic of discussion at both of those meetings. Yeah.
So one thing that just blew me away was that Cherie, who is on the planning board, did the math. Oh my God. I was like at my kitchen table going like, yeah, Cherie, I
I
get it.
know.
Awesome. So in one of the past meetings, they talked about with this truck issue that they're having, which again is a compliance issue, but is being discussed on the town board,
Mhm.
is that their hours from when they receive trucks to the number of trucks that they're having in the 15-minute intervals, Cherie calculated that they could only have 22 trucks. So she was like, if you have, I didn't do the math, but if you have 5 hours and 15-minute increments, then you could only
Yeah.
fit 22 trucks. And you're scheduling 30 trucks. And with this expansion, you're expecting 10 more trucks to be 40 in the same number of hours, but you don't have enough loading docks or parking for those trucks. Did I get this right?
Yeah. Yeah, you did. You absolutely did. She said there's already 8 trucks without a home and you're going to add 10 more. Yeah.
And they did not have a response for this.
No, and what was really interesting about this truck topic is they kicked off the conversation. Fred Reichel, the chair of the planning board, said that he had met with the police chief, the town of Montgomery police chief, acting police chief on Wednesday, and there had been 5 tickets issued to trucks that were parked on the road on Tuesday evening. So like this is an ongoing issue. And we had talked about like the planning board and the community had talked about this on the 26th. And it came up at the town board meeting last week. The
Yep.
problem has clearly not been solved. And I
Right.
I have to say, like, I I don't think it's fair to the drivers that they're getting ticketed because UNFI is scheduling their trucks incorrectly. I think it's really unfair that the drivers, I mean, I've said this a lot before, but driving a truck it's a tough job. You have a lot of regulations that you have to meet, a lot of requirements. You've got to meet your rest time, and I'm not sure if UNFI drivers, if these delivery trucks are, if they're UNFI employed, or if these are the delivery trucks that are bringing the food to the warehouse that's going to be
It's the
redistributed.
second one. They're not
Yeah.
UNFI employees. They've said it in a past meeting.
So basically, they're just outsourcing the penalty for UNFI's poor planning to these external drivers. And I don't think it's fair that truck drivers should be driving to the transportation capital of the Northeast without having appropriate space for them when they get here. I think it's really inappropriate.
Yeah.
I honestly I think it's bad business, and I'll go so far as to say I think it's immoral. I just don't think it's okay. You shouldn't outsource the penalty to those individual drivers.
Right. I am in agreement that I don't want them to be parking on Neelytown Road.
No, no,
Um,
no.
but to then give them the tickets for showing up to work early. I
Hmm.
I mean, here's the thing. Do they have somewhere, is the truck stop full? I don't know.
It
Right?
usually is full overnight. I've driven past I mean, I used to work in New Jersey when I was driving to an office and I would come home really late at night and I would come off of the highway and come down 84 and the truck stop is often really full. And it's usually so full that when I would drive to work really early in the morning, I would pass by trucks on the side of 416 in the cemetery parking lot, just sleeping. And I would look down Neelytown on the side, and there's what used to be the old farmers market that's across from just right up the road from the intersection. There'd be trucks parked there, and there still are. I passed by there kind of early in the morning a couple of days ago, and there's trucks parked there. It's not because they don't want to pay to park at the truck stop. It's the truck stop is full and there's no overflow for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I thought that was a really good discussion, and the next part of the discussion got into, a noise study that was conducted. Now,
Hmm.
I did not have the noise study in front of me, and I don't remember I was not at the meetings where this noise study was, discussed. So, what I had written down about it was that there was a noise study done last year in the August timeframe, um, where UNFI paid an engineering firm to do this noise study. That was it about this particular expansion, or was it just a general like we're due for a noise study?
So what I took away from this meeting is that in 2014, when the facility was constructed,
Mhm,
there was a requirement that 6 months after the certificate of occupancy, the CO, was
mhm.
issued by the building inspector, there was a requirement for a noise study to be done after UNFI was in full operation. So
In
6 months after,
2014.
in 2014, and they never did it. And there was a little bit of like a heated back and forth where I
Mhm.
kind of got the feeling that the applicant was blaming the town for not requiring them to do it. And it just made me think again about that code enforcement thing. Like, they're not going to volunteer to do their homework. So, should we be forcing them to be doing their homework? Like, what is the town enforcement officer's role in this?
Right.
Whose
Well,
job was it? It's not the planning board's job anymore. They've signed off on the site plan. The project has been fully constructed.
right. So exactly. And so my question that I wrote down for this discussion is, how does code enforcement affect future expansions?
Yeah,
Because what seems to be happening in this particular project is that UNFI wants to do this expansion. So, as they kind of open up the books on what has happened since they approved the project and start going through the list, they realize that UNFI has not been meeting all of the requirements all of the time. So they didn't do
right.
this noise study. They had some trucks parked in a location that they weren't supposed to be parked. They had the truck issue on Neelytown Road. And now all these things are bubbling up and it's turning into enforcement. So I guess my question is there any requirement that you have to be a good steward of your code in order to be granted an expansion?
More stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
right.
know.
I don't I don't I don't think there is. Like, it
Right.
doesn't seem like there is. And I kind of got the feeling that the planning board was kind of like checking the boxes from the neg deck when this one opened up again to make sure that everything had been accomplished. And when they saw that this noise study had not been accomplished, they asked for them to do one. And
Right.
yeah,
So that makes sense because I it makes this study sup like, supposed to be a general noise study, but it's also about this expansion, so that's why it's
right.
kind of part of the same. So, anyway, I think that code enforcement is just gonna absolutely be a consistent discussion item. I mean, they had talked about issuing violations, and another question I had is when we issue a violation,
Hmm.
are we doing warnings first? Are we um, fining people? Like, do they have to pay fines for these? What are the fines? It's just an area that I'm not familiar with.
Yeah. I really don't know either. I don't know if that's something that needs to be written in our laws, if it's already in our laws, if it's in our zoning code, if there's I'm gonna do some looking around on like the internet, but I'm not sure if I'll be able to figure it out.
Yeah, and like, how come we never see Jim Farr who does that? in our town board meetings where he rolls up to report for these issues. He
Right.
doesn't We don't have a town engineer. I don't know if that was done historically, but to me, I would be very interested in like, to at least a quarterly review of code
Mhm.
enforcement to the town.
We did have a town engineer um, before we kind of like outsourced that to Delaware Engineering.
Mhm,
And he did come to the town board meetings, but he also did not report back on anything like this. He was really talking about future projects or if there was like a budget allocation that he was requesting or something
mhm,
like that. That's my recollection from the last couple of years. I will say, I was looking at the New Windsor Planning Board meeting minutes for reasons. 'Cause I'm a nerd. No, it was because I was just trying to track down propane storage
mhm.
approvals in New Windsor because I've heard that there's been some similar discussions in New Windsor over the last several years. And one of the things that I found really striking, not only does the town of New Windsor pay for a very comprehensive document management system where you can see all of the documents going back years, it's
Mhm.
amazing. Also, every single agenda or meeting minute that I read had the code enforcement officer at the New Windsor Planning Board meetings participating in the discussion, which
Oh,
I thought was really cool.
yeah.
And maybe if we had an in-house employed code enforcement officer for commercial properties, we would have that. But we had we had an in-house person before Jim Farr was hired to support this, building inspector role, and they didn't consistently come to the planning board meetings either. So I think it's just a question of somebody setting the culture.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
really like that idea. It's a lot of work, but, it's really needed in this town.
Montgomery has a lot of projects in front of it, but we
Yeah.
continue to have a lot of projects in front of it. And the reason why we get people showing up to our meetings unprepared or combative is because we've set an expectation that they're just going to get what they want when they show up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Anything
I
else?
didn't I didn't keep up, if I could just say about the sound study, I didn't keep
Oh, yeah.
up with the numbers that Shuri went over. She did a
Mm-mm.
really great recap. I got a little bit distracted when I was making some notes, so I couldn't really keep up with it. But I do think something that I want to go back and maybe listen to the video again was I got the impression that they are already in exceedance of the approved sound levels from the
Oh,
2014 negative declaration. Like
okay.
they were supposed to do the sound study in 2014 to confirm that they were below a certain noise threshold. And I got the impression that they're above it right now, even without adding any additional stuff. And I want to go back and confirm that. But that's a huge deal because if that's the case, then the people that live next to this facility have been subject to excess noise since 2014. And that's not okay.
Yeah. No, and I think that like UNFI made a comment about how they have, more restrictive guidelines because they of the nature of where they're um located, right? Because
Hmm.
their backyard backs up against some houses. But those houses were there first. So you knew you built your warehouse
Yeah.
next to houses. Like, yes, it's an industrial corridor, but Beaver Dam Road is not industrial, and that is a T intersection with Beaver Dam Road where you put your warehouse. So, like, that just didn't fly with me. Like,
Hmm.
industrial corridor doesn't give you just like a free reign to do whatever you want for noise, or just discount the fact that there are people who live near an industrial corridor. Like,
Yeah.
no, not not great in my book. I didn't that really didn't buy that. And then he the presenter made a pretty big misstep when he commented that nobody from the town had showed up to discuss the UNFI project.
Yeah. The
And
public hasn't been here. This public hearing's been open since September. And like, I was like, should I call in? I have
I
something
was
to
there.
say.
I was there. There was a lot of other people there, and the board corrected him. They were
Hmm.
not happy. They were like, actually, there were people at at meetings, and they have discussed it. And I guess there might haven't been anybody there tonight, but like, we.
Well,
Mm-mm.
I think that comment came after he chastised the board and the town for not requiring them to fulfill their obligations in 2014. And
That they UNFI didn't do.
UNFI chastised the town for not requiring them to do that. And that was a pretty heated
Yeah.
section of the meeting. Um, yeah.
All right. Anything else for you? And if I more to come on this, I think that this is just going to continue to get, I don't see this ending anytime soon because they really do need to work out with this expansion how they are going to continue. Um, how are they going to meet the requirements they haven't met yet and
Hmm.
then also expand? So I think UNFI has like a pretty big job ahead of them.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
All right, so the last major agenda item is Red Birch Incorporated, which is not a red birch, but is in fact self-storage and multi-purpose building,
Yeah.
kind of like a warehouse on 17K, which they're calling Flex Space. This is down in Coldenham, and they approved this, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
I this site plan, in the past meetings, they've tweaked a few things, and this is an approved, plan to move forward.
Yes. The thing that I thought was really interesting that I hadn't realized, and I mean, shame on me, I guess. Like I'm on the comprehensive, not I'm sorry, the Conservation Advisory Council. So we get to see all of the plans that are submitted to the planning board also, and we're able to review them and provide feedback to the planning board on environmentally specific issues. And I guess I didn't realize that this plan had been in front of the planning board and approved in 2017 previously, and this was just a change to the site plan. They mentioned a
Yeah,
couple of things like there had been a use variance granted from the ZBA in 2016.
2016.
There's been an Orange County Planning Board approval, an MS4 approval in 2017 based on the 2017 plans, and I really didn't know that, and I was surprised.
Yeah, absolutely. I had also written that their original, um, permit, the special exception use for the storage facility was 2016, so, I'm not sure I mean, it doesn't sound like our planning board has been reviewing it for this long.
No.
It just stalled for a little while.
Yeah, I did go back and I looked at some of the old planning board minutes from like 2017 and 2018 to see if there was any more discussion about it at that time, and there wasn't after they issued that
Yeah,
negative declaration. I think it popped up again maybe about a year ago, I'd like to
mhm,
say, like just before COVID. I recall seeing this in front of the CAC.
right.
So I guess a year and a half ago it came up
Okay.
again for the change.
So we'll see if they will start their construction on this. I think they can move forward based on what happened in
Yeah,
today's meeting, or they will sit on it and become one of the plans that is approved indefinitely, such as the next two that are on the agenda. Did you
that's
like
right.
that
That was a nice segue. Yeah.
segue?
So
So
one of them was St. Andrew's Place, which was a housing
mhm,
subdivision that had the approval for this was expired. It is expired as of May 1st, 2019. So it's been
mhm,
expired for about 2 years now.
yeah. So when they had to do the approval on this, they had to um, do a retroactive approval starting essentially May 1st, 2019 forward, and then
Mhm.
give another one forward. It was a 9 lot residential subdivision, um, which is in Walden, but in the town, not the village of Walden, right? So it's a Walden address because it's past the village, I think, when I looked at it on a Google map.
I think so. Yeah.
And then the next one was I didn't write the date on the original approval for this one. This is, a solar
Yeah.
farm, right?
This one was approved about, oh, I didn't write it down either. I think it was approved about a year ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also on St. Andrews Road. I don't think there's anything I don't know if those 2 are related, that they happen to be near each other, and that was also, extended. Um, what I thought was funny is we've had, like, a past discussion about what we call these, like, zombie approvals, which you so nicely explained to me are approvals that just get done indefinitely, um, and and this one, the first one, which was the residential subdivision, had actually expired, but not only can you extend indefinitely, but if you happen to expire, we can still go back.
I know. I know. Yeah, I think this was a one some Fred Reichel was explaining this to the board, just kind of summarizing the issue. I think this was a subdivision where It was a clustered subdivision, which is an
Mhm.
open space preservation mechanism that we've used over by, Sylvie, where you and I live. The Twaddle Farms subdivision is an example of a clustered subdivision. Like all of the houses are on one side of the road, the lots are a little bit smaller, and then the farmland across Beaver Dam Road is a preserved farm over there now, and because they've clustered the homes. And one of the things that Fred Reichel said is that I think the reason why they allowed it to expire was because one of the parcels was removed from the site plan, so they're going to have to redo the cluster subdivision plan in order to preserve whatever open space they're still able to preserve. And that I think the town board is going to have to approve that. And that's interesting. I did not know the process for clustered subdivisions to be approved, but I guess it is a deviation from the zoning code. So it makes sense that the town board would have to approve it.
Yeah, right, they said the original open space is no longer there? I don't know.
Yeah.
They
I
would have
don't know if it's like reduced or if it's just all gone and we're going to just have like a regular. I don't know.
I don't know. So we
Yeah.
will find out one day.
Yes. Yeah. There will be a memo prepared and sent to the town board.
So that was the end of today's planning board meeting.
Yeah.
So some good things. Anything else?
No, I just think if anyone's really is well, maybe okay, yes, there's one other thing. If anyone is curious about like what this negative declaration sounds like, if they want to just zip ahead to the Red Birch negative declaration, it's a pretty short and straightforward negative declaration document, but it's kind of interesting because it outlines all of the ways that this development is not going to cause a significant impact on the community or the environment.
Yep.
And so it's a formulaic document, and Frederico read through it, and then the board voted on it. But if you have been dying of curiosity for what a negative declaration sounds like, this is a good one to listen to. It's pretty straightforward.
Okay. I like
Yeah,
that for the nerds
for the nerds.
because we sat there and listened to it.
Yeah, yeah.
I like it. So where can I find you this week?
Oh, so you can find me on the internet, Karina for Montgomery. Um, on Instagram, Facebook, and that is also my webpage. And Sylvie, where can we find you?
So I am also on social media and the internet. My website is rinaldiformontgomery.com. I am on Facebook as Rinaldi for Montgomery and Instagram as Rinaldi for Montgomery. And I want to also wish you a happy Mother's Day because this is our first meeting since Mother's Day.
Yeah, happy Mother's Day to you
One.
too.
Thanks. And for those out there wondering, we are running for town board on November 2nd. You will see us on the ballot. So please mark your calendars. There is early voting as well at the end of October. So there's no excuse to not go out and vote for us in November.
And if
Anything
you
else?
need more convincing, just reach out. We'll tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good
All
night.
right. Have a
Bye.
good night.